What happens when a title that threatens to consume not just their legacies, but the entire WNBA? This is the story of how Brittney Griner's calculated attack on Caitlin Clark unleashed a devastating boomerang effect, exposing her to the one thing she couldn't control, the truth. At the heart of today's WNBA is an undeniable tension. Described as a targeted verbal jab, Brittney Griner took a direct shot at the rookie. She publicly downplayed Clark's abilities, delivering a line dripping with condescension. That Clark isn't a complete player, she's just a shooter. This wasn't a simple basketball critique. This was a calculated slur attack, an attempt to diminish the most It was leaked back into the public consciousness as a direct response to her attack on Clark, and it would become the catalyst for a firestorm of scrutiny. The resurfaced footage reignited a deeply controversial and sensitive debate that has followed Griner for years. Questions surrounding her gender. Online detectives and social her shoe size, every physical attribute was put under a microscope. Memes, videos, and thousands of posts flooded the internet, creating a massive and unavoidable conversation that questioned the very identity of the WNBA star. The attack on Clark had inadvertently turned the spotlight back on Griner's most personal blown panic. But her fear wasn't about the gender debate itself. It was about the catastrophic timing. She had just returned to the US as a sympathetic figure, carefully rebuilding her image and signing lucrative brand deals. Now, by attacking America's new sweetheart, Caitlin Clark, she had recast herself as a bitter bully. Our nightmare that threatened to undo everything. And what was Caitlin Clark's response to all this drama? Absolute silence. While Griner was reportedly spiraling, Clark was sinking shots. She remained completely unfazed, a picture of maturity and professionalism. She didn't engage. She didn't retaliate. She simply kept playing basketball. It wasn't just a sign of her strong character. It was a brilliant strategic move that won her even more support from fans who saw her as a class act, rising above the toxicity. This conflict, however, is bigger than just Griner. Her comments are seen as a symptom of a much larger disease within the WNBA, a deep-seated culture of resentment from veterans. Players like Diana Taurasi, who they see Clark's rise not as a tide that lifts all boats, but as a personal slight to their own careers and legacies. Griner, in this view, wasn't just speaking for herself. She was speaking for an entire faction of the old guard. This veteran resentment has not been confined to words. It has spilled onto the court in dangerous ways. Is seen as the inevitable result of the verbal attacks led by players like Griner. The message was clear. If they couldn't diminish her with words, they would try to do it with force. The on-court targeting of Clark is now viewed as a direct extension of the off-court jealousy. If Griner and her allies were trying to win a war for the flooding social media with messages of support for the rookie and condemnation for Griner. Media outlets that once championed Griner are now criticizing her for unsportsmanlike conduct and